Okay, I'd like to call the North St. Paul Regular Council meeting to order. If you could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mary, if you could take roll.
Councilmember Thorson?
Here.
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 Here, quorum is present. At this time, I'd like to amend the agenda. We're amending the regular agenda to add an item to city business, H ordinance number 786, amending the municipal fee schedule to change massage licensing fees. And I believe that is, we're doing this because this fee was, and Scott will talk about it in the general business. So at this time, motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved, Your Honor.
So moved by Councilmember Peterson, second by Councilmember Walzak. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. We have no presentations. At this time, we do have the consent agenda, and that's the June 11th, 2019 workshop retreat minutes, the June 18th, 2019 workshop meeting minutes, the June 18th, 2019 regular meeting minutes, the June 18th, 2019 HRA minutes, the general accounts payable of $199,000 and $51.49, the memorandum of agreement with Teamsters Local Number 320 to have the full-time utility locator position covered by the 2019-21 collective bargaining agreement, and the authorization to support national prescription opiate litigation. At this time, if any council member would like to take one of those off the consent. If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion.
So moved.
Oh, I'm sorry. Motion by Councilmember Sonic, second by
I'll second your.
Councilmember Walzak. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion carries. I am getting better at this. It's new to me, so bear with me. This time, the meeting is open to the public, and we do have one person that would like to talk, John Schmall.
John Schmall, 27th. Trying to understand this thing that I brought up. To 2013, I believe, and under which we are presently working. Well, just came up.
Just came.
Okay. And there's errors in it. And I brought this to the attention of the city engineer, and specifically the errors has to do when you were going to do the improvements on the lift stations. They are all going to be on, starting in 2018, 2020, and 2022, and they're all done. But I looked at this document and said, are they going to fix them again? What is this? What is this all about? And in my conversation with Morgan, he says, yeah, we got a good deal, so we did them. I said, well, the document says this is what it says. And another reason for bringing it up, there's going to be improvements on Chisholm Avenue. I live on Chisholm Avenue. If this isn't correct, what else isn't correct in this document? And I brought this up because of the park meeting. This gets complicated, wherein 2 years ago, I said something about a tree that's going to fall down, and it's right at a point where there's a choke point that you have to go on this path where the tree is that's dying, and there's limbs falling off of it. And at that, trying to find that document to give it to Deborah to say, I'm not lying, I brought this up before. And so I gave her the email, and I also found the email that I sent to Morgan in 2017. It was a bad year for me in 2017. Nobody listened to me. Saying the same thing. What's with this lift station stuff in your document? Yeah, we took care of that. But don't you have a feeling that you need to have your plans and your documents kept up to date? I don't know. Is it a fool's errand to take a look at something the city produces and say, hey, there's something wrong here, and then just getting the high sign? Huh, well, that's nice. So I don't know. Should I give up on reading what you do and what you put out, or because it's a waste of time? Basically, it's a waste of time.
Well, I'm assuming a lot of times that's just a roadmap for us, but I'll, City Manager Dudek, I don't know if you want to respond to this, or?
No, I think it's, John, I think you should keep reading it and keep letting us know about it, because it keeps us on task, and those items should be updated. If we've completed them, we should update the document that it has been completed and update it for years to come.
Well, 2 of them are still on the plan to be done, and they were done 3 years ago. So, and you just get it looked at and said, well, what? Kind of a waste of time. I found that it was. I took some pride in, hey, look, you got a problem here. But nothing was done with it. Just absolutely nothing. Same way with the tree. And it can't be done now because it's wet out and all that. But you could have done it in the wintertime. Anyway, thanks.
Thank you, John. I do have one resident that would also like to say something in regards to her, what we're going to be voting on earlier. Kathy, if you could just give her your name and address, that'd be great. Welcome.
I'm Kathy Anderson. I live at 2227 Eldridge Avenue, and I am here about the opening of Zero Burke as an alleyway. And one of the problems I have with that is it creates extra throughway for people on feet or anybody that wants to cut through my property to get across the way. And then there is the question of the wetland and more water on my property once it's developed. So that's, what I've got to say.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. At this time, we have no public hearings, and we'll go right into the city business action items and recommendations, and go to City Manager Dudek.
Mayor, Council, thank you. We got several items tonight. The first one is with MnDOT and our North St. Paul, our cooperative landscape agreement. I'll have Deborah Gustafson address that.
Hi, thank you, Mayor and members of the council. So as Scott mentioned, the first item before you is to put in an application for a cooperative agreement with MnDOT to do planters. We did just recently put in an application for $10,000 on May 21st for $10,000, but with the scope of the project, we're looking to do a phase 2, which would be another $10,000. This project is a reimbursement program where the city would pay for it and then MnDOT would reimburse us. And then we would be responsible for actually installing and doing the landscaping, and the Public Works team would be responsible for putting that in, and they have been involved in these meetings. And since it's a little bit confusing because we've done phase 1 and phase 2, I did invite Todd Carroll from MnDOT to come to kind of just elaborate a little more in regards to the plan, the landscaping plan, and then the timing of this and the reason why we're doing a phase 1 and a phase 2. So I will pass this on to Todd.
Welcome, Todd.
Hi there. I'm Todd Carroll. I'm the senior landscape architect with MnDOT, and I remember Jan quite well from when we did the project before. She's gonna laugh. What this involves is that the planters that we did, the contractor we had out there, something happened and the plants got weedy, and so Deborah called our office and talked about, can we do another project here? There's something like that through the space here to kind of clean it up. And we've been working with, I've worked with a couple other communities and we have an actual example kind of down by our office of this sort of sedum mats that we were kind of looking at. And they've been holding back the weeds really well down there and doing some stuff. I have another project up in Hibbing that I'm working on, and then I'm installing in another spot also. And we did an example with more native grasses kind of out on 36 by the large state entrance monument right now. But I thought this was a good example of how to do something. It's a roof garden type material, so it's a sedum mix that we've kind of come up with. We've modified the one that's out of that's down at the Capitol there to incorporate a few other sedums that might work better. And it's a rooftop garden type plant mix, so it actually tolerates the heat and dryness and not having as much water. So, and it seems like it's doing really well to hold back the weeds because it's actually grown in the mats prior to putting them down, so the seeds and everything are growing, so you actually get it's almost like a sod, putting it into place. So what happened was that the cost was a lot more than what we have per fiscal year for what we can do for a community. So what we discussed with Deborah was that we could do the first cooperative agreement phase. They could order that material, and then we would do the second phase right away, and for our fiscal year, because ours goes from July 1st to June 30th. So we had the first phase that got executed, the cooperative agreement did, so the funding is there for the $10,000. I talked to Deborah about getting the second started so we could do the cooperative agreement for the second phase. And then the plan was that Ramey Turf is doing the seeding, so they actually they've already kind of working out the seeding and the seed mats, so they're growing them right now. Deborah's going to purchase the first part up to $10,000, and then whatever's left that we can do for the next part, we'll install it all at one time. Then she'll actually just turn in both invoices at the same time, and we'll just reimburse the city at the full $20,000 pretty much at one shot. So that was sort of the plan, so we could do it one planting, but still be able to get all of it put in as part of the project. So, if there's any other questions.
Any questions for Todd?
She told me you had a question, Jan. So
So we're gonna be the bank for a year?
no, it's if everything gets done here, we should have that stuff installed by late August or September, and we should be able to reimburse you based on when this other agreement comes in. So that was sort of the plan, is that this would get all planted, and then Deborah would turn that in right away, and we'll reimburse you right away. So it's not
Okay,
even
so we've got
much
the
time.
one chunk and
the one
next
chunk set
is-
aside right now for us. Executed now,
Wow.
so the next part, if we do this other agreement here, this resolution, I'll start the next agreement, we'll get that going, and then once it's both installed, we'll have the money set aside then, and we'll just be able to reimburse you for both sections right away, so.
Wow, Todd, thank you
You're welcome.
very much.
That was an easy question, you couldn't
Yeah.
say something harder at me?
Sounds very acceptable.
So,
Any other questions for Todd or Deborah? Good. Thank you, Todd.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Very
Thank you,
much.
Deborah. Oh, wait, we do have one question, sorry.
So this is just for all of the sedums sod?
Right now,
that-
this is
that we're getting for the 10 and the 10?
yes.
So no other plants will be replaced or anything?
Right now, there is no other plants. We were trying to keep it low maintenance in those planters, so you will be able to see them from above, but we want to try to keep the weed mess down. The trees that are already there, we're going to stay, and the junipers that were there are staying also, that are on the edge that are kind of hanging over, but we didn't want the tall weeds in that bed there.
Okay,
But if
well,
you're
no,
gonna look
I
from
can
the
get it
top-
for the weeds, but at one time, didn't we have conversation about something that would like vine over nicely so that,
The junipers are doing that already. actually.
well,
Not as best. but
sort of
they're
they
kind
are.
I think we wanted to get this part in first, and then we'll talk about doing another
Okay,
phase.
because it should be as eye appealing to the highway as it is if you lean over the fence and look down. Because those
It's a
are the
little bit
only
odd
two
of the-
ways that it gets
It's an odd
seen.
space, and so we just wanted to try to keep it as low maintenance, because the city person, Keith, Public Works, talked about how hard it is to sometimes get in there and maintain that. So
Yeah.
I wanted to try to keep it as low of maintenance as possible for that purpose. So that's why I thought we'd go with this route here and see how this works. We can always do another project again for our next fiscal year, which would be the fall of 2020. So that would be the next phase because we're already using the money for our fiscal year 20 right now for us, so.
Okay.
It'd be our fiscal $21 that we'd have available then, at that time. So,
Good,
thank you.
thank you, thank you. So there's a motion on the table for resolution supporting the application for MnDOT landscape partnership application.
So moved, Your
So
Honor.
moved by Councilmember Walzak,
Second.
second by Councilmember Sonic. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. City Manager,
Next item here, I have Window World Commercial POD tonight. I have Aaron Purdue, our city planner, with WSB to present.
Thank you, Scott. Mayor, members of council. The first item I have for you tonight, again, is a planned unit development for a couple of commercial sites that Window World is looking at linking. You'll recall that last year, they were before you presenting plans for the former Easy Riding site on McKnight. That site plan is now being rolled into this two-phase PUD. So what we're trying to do here is, after discussions with the applicant, between staff and the applicant, we understood that they're looking at purchasing the Ace Hardware site, or they have purchased it, remodeling and expanding that building to use for some of their offices and their retail showroom, and then connecting this site with that Easy Riding site that they got approval for last year for the rest of their operations and for more storage and circulation. So what we recommended was that they link the two sites with a planned unit development, so that all of the approvals that they got last year would be memorialized in this PUD, and that we could add on to what they want to do with the Ace Hardware site. So that's kind of the gist of the application. They're looking at doing the Ace Hardware site improvements first. So that's phase one. So when we refer to phase one in the staff report, we're talking about that site. Phase two would come at a later date, and that would be the site on McKnight. Yep. And so I've got the site plan that I'd like to just get on the screen, just so that folks can see it. And if we have questions, we can refer back to it. But basically, this is an overview of the phase one of the application, where this is the existing Ace Hardware building, the existing parking lot out front. There's a proposed addition on the back of the building. There would be a cross-access easement here so that truck traffic could go back and forth between, well, really one direction onto the other site. And then this is showing an easement over the existing water main, which I'll describe in a moment. So just to go through the highlights of the application, we looked at parking first on the site plan. What they're proposing for phase one is 23 parking spaces. The requirement, based on the mix of uses that they would have in that building, is 21 spaces, so they've got more than the minimum accommodated there. If we look at both sites all together, you'll remember that on the McKnight site, they got a variance for fewer parking spaces. If so, the total for both sites that would be required would be 53. They've got 48, which is 5 spaces less than is required. However, they did get a 7-spot variance on the other site, so we are actually a little bit closer to conformance with the ordinance, looking at both of the sites. And again, when the phase two gets built out, if the uses inside that building were to change, if the applicant, decides, they had planned that building for some retail space also. If they're going to have all of their retail space here, for example, they would require less parking on that other site. So we'd be taking a look at that too at the time when they develop that one. Looking at landscaping and open space, here in phase one, you'll notice that there are a couple of areas here, kind of with a gray crosshatch on the site plan, that are proposed to be the asphalt to be removed and some additional landscaping put in. That brings the total open space on the phase one site to close to 20%. If we look at both sites together, they are at about 11% open space. Our requirement is 5% for non-residential uses, so they are far above that. I have talked to the applicant, and they are potentially interested in reducing some of the landscape area on this site to gain a couple more of those parking spaces back, given that they're so far over on the open space. And so that's something that we could, staff could work with them on. But in any case, they are compliant with our landscaping standards. They've got some trees proposed on the site, and with our open space standard as well. The other item of interest that I'll mention is that there's an existing loading dock on the front of the building. It's a just an overhead door located in this part of the building that they would like to continue to use. And so the landscaping that they are planning along the west part of the site would help to shield that. But they're not planning on any changes to that. And finally, looking at the engineering considerations, one of the items that our engineer brought up was that there appears to be some potential filling of an area of the floodplain in the far, it's a very small area in the far southwest corner of the site in order to make the access work. And so we noted that if you're going to fill in a portion of the floodplain, you have to replace that flood storage somewhere on the site. Morgan did take a look at that, and looking at from phase 1, we had included a condition that a rain garden be included on that site. And so with the rain garden, engineering believed that that would compensate for any loss of the floodplain in this corner. So with that, the Planning Commission and staff recommended conditional approval of the PUD. The conditions that are in the report involve, again, reiterating that a 20-foot easement is needed across the existing water main that runs along the back of the Ace Hardware site and the side of the McKnight site. We would require that those cross-access easements be recorded. We have a condition in there, again, about the filling of that 100-year floodplain, and that whatever fill takes place be made up for elsewhere, perhaps in the rain garden on the other site. And the rest of the phase 1 conditions are our standard conditions relating to permits and civil site plans. We've also included all of the same conditions for phase 2 that were approved last year with the former Easy Riding site. So all of those conditions remain as well with both site plans. And so with that, I would be happy to try and answer any questions. I know that the applicants are here tonight too, if you have specific questions about the operation. Oh, I'm sorry, there's one other thing I did want to mention was signage. I knew there was one thing that I forgot to mention, so I'll bring that up too. The applicants are requesting some extra signage than what's allowed in the ordinance. That came in really 2 forms. One of them is with the existing pylon sign, so you see that on the screen there. One of their requests was to raise that up an additional 10 feet from where the existing Ace Hardware sign is, and that's largely due to the fact that when the freeway was reconstructed, it was brought up in elevation, and so in order to be visible from 36, that sign needs some extra elevation. So that's part of their sign proposal. The other signage that they have requested is on the wall of the building. It was initially more wall signage that they had requested, so it was a larger deviation from the ordinance requirements. After talking with staff and getting some feedback, the applicants reduced the size of the sign that they wish to put on the building. And so if we add together the wall signage and the pylon sign, they're about 28 square feet more than what is allowed in total on the site. But the Planning Commission was supportive of their request and recommended that that deviation be included as part of the approval of the PUD. So, and with that, I will stop and take any questions.
Any questions for Aaron?
Councilmember Walczak.
The sign where Ace Hardware had it, that they want to raise 10 feet, has anyone given any consideration to what that will block from visioning ahead?
From traveling along Castle, you mean?
Or the freeway, or the exit ramp, or
No, it would raise it to approximately the same height as the target sign across the highway on the other side, which hasn't produced any issues to my knowledge. But no, we didn't look at specifically whether there were hazards. We would certainly take a look at that and make sure that we weren't blocking any visibility for traffic safety before we issued any permits for it.
Where's the China Chef sign? Does it access?
It's actually smaller. I actually drove over there and I looked and, because of the Highway 36 reconstruction, they are in a hole now. And it would be beneficial to have them raise that sign. It would be more visible from 36. Any other questions? Yep. Councilmember Sonic.
Yeah, Aaron, I just wanted to clarify on the open space here. I think that the total open space, so for phase one on the Ace Hardware site, that's going to be approximately 20%, given their development there. And so and then even when you combine for the PUD with the other site, there's the entire site has a total open space then of 11%.
Correct.
And what we require is 5%.
Yes.
Right, so they're well over the minimum required. I believe that in both cases, from the original variance that they got from the Easy Rider space and with the Ace Hardware site, that 11% still represents an increase in open space from what is existing right now, right?
Absolutely.
So in their
yes.
first space, they were increasing the, permeable surfaces, and in this new space, they're going to be removing some of that asphalt, some of the impermeable surfaces, and putting in landscaping. Is that correct? So overall, they're increasing the open space.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for Aaron? We do have the applicants here if they want to, do you want to say anything?
Oh,
Come on up.
it was the question about the signage or about blocking. Right now, this China Chef and the old Ace pylon, and then the water softener, they're all lined up. So depending on which direction you're coming from, at least a couple of the businesses' signs are blocked by each other. Having our sign a little bit higher actually helps for visibility for the other two places because they're not all in line with each other then. So it would be an improvement actually for all the businesses.
And thank you for staying in our town. Great, thank you, Terry.
Yeah,
Yep.
thank you.
So at this time, motion for resolution approving a commercial, resolution approving a commercial plan unit development for Window World at 2295 McKnight Road and 2220 Castle Avenue.
So moved.
So moved by Councilmember Sonic.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Thorson. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Motion carries. City Manager Dudek.
Next item, Mayor, Council, is Burke right-of-way vacation, and Aaron.
Just 1 second. Thank you, Terry, and.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being in the.
25th anniversary tonight.
There you, oh, happy anniversary.
What
Happy
in your
anniversary.
business?
Thank you.
Okay, sorry.
The Burke right-of-way vacation, and Aaron will handle that one
Okay.
also.
The second item that I've got for you tonight is a vacation of a portion of the alley right-of-way behind Zero Burke. The request is being made by the owner of the parcel address Zero Burke and 2125th Avenue North. They're requesting that just the southern half of that alleyway adjacent to their property be vacated. And the reason for that is that they will be applying for, or actually just recently have applied for, a planned unit development for an additional apartment building on the vacant spot. In preliminary discussions with staff over the last year or so, They realized that they needed some additional space for emergency vehicle access and circulation around the buildings, and so that was what precipitated the vacation request. We will be evaluating that site plan separately, so that will be coming to the Planning Commission, I believe, at their August meeting, and then it will come before you for approval, so we will be able to evaluate those details later. We did have some comments at the Planning Commission, similar to the comment that you got earlier tonight regarding drainage and wondering what would happen with water if there was additional development in that area. That's something that we will review in a lot of detail when we get a site plan. Our engineers will review it and make sure that we're not making flooding issues any worse on any adjacent properties. So that'll be a subject for the site plan. Tonight, we're just looking at vacating that right away. The city evaluated it. It was never improved as an alley, and there are no plans to do so. There are not any utilities in that alley. And so staff and the Planning Commission recommended approval of that vacation request. The only condition being that there would be drainage and utility easement over that vacated area. And with that, I would be happy to take questions.
Any questions for Aaron? I guess my question is, Kathy's, what she was asking earlier, but that'll come up later, you're saying? And
So, I'm sorry, Mayor, members of council, the issue of drainage and the adjacent wetland and any flooding issues in that area would be addressed when we get the site plan, the planned unit development application. We will review that to see if there are any impacts or changes that need to be made to the site plan. And so that would be a subject for when we discuss that. Yeah, that will come to Planning Commission and then back to you as well. So there'll be another public hearing about that. Also, just to clarify that it's not the entire alley that's being requested, just that portion of it. So we're not anticipating, or it won't be possible to have any through traffic through that alley.
Okay, so there will be a public hearing in regards to,
The site plan,
The
yes.
site plan.
Mhm. And
So
the neighbors
Kathy-
will get notified of that too. Yep.
any other questions?
Mayor, Council, just wanted to comment that maybe sometime in the future, this just be looked at other areas there with either vacation or some improvements, because as it comes out onto McKnight Road, that section is shared by two private properties there with a driveway access. It's a gravel driveway, and there's erosion and thing that goes on with there. And then with the recent sale of the old animal hospital on the corner and the improvements that are going to be done with that, it may be looking at that in the near future here for possible vacation and improvements of that for both of those adjoining properties.
Councilmember Walzak.
Okay, I'm trying to get the wetland here. So is the wetland what's between where the red is and between those two black?
Mayor and Councilmember Walzak, I believe the wetland is actually on the parcel that's to the east of Zero Burke. A large part of that property is wetland, and it,
Okay,
so, yeah.
so where the vet clinic was?
It,
But didn't
I don't
didn't
know.
that extend down into the?
all my land here. This is all my land.
So if you take wetland, don't you have to replace it? I mean, like with the trading of,
I don't think that's the question here. It's just that the city is gonna vacate this parcel.
Right.
And a lot of these concerns that potentially could come up will be addressed
okay.
in the next phase.
Yeah, I don't think there's any plan or intent to fill any wetland or take any wetland. It would be to maintain the wetland that's there.
and we would be.
But it's
I'm sorry.
isn't it for, you said they needed the extra for emergency vehicles, so that would lead me to believe that there's gonna be some kind of a driveway for them.
But I
Is
bel-
that,
That's that red spot.
oops, oh my gosh, what did I? Okay.
Mr.
Councilmember
Can I
Simon.
just make a comment? At the Planning Commission meeting, we did have several neighbors there who were concerned about any development on that parcel. And so to be clear, we're not talking about the development tonight. It is just to vacate that portion of the alley. But of course, to vacate that portion of the alley will be to develop that site, because that lot that is adjacent to what the property owner currently has an apartment building on is more or less landlocked. So in order to have emergency vehicles to be able to access that, that's why he's looking to have that portion of the alley vacated. So there is concern from residents over what any development on that parcel might cause.
Okay, I see.
So, and so that's what's going on there. And so I think when we're talking about the site plan and what they're looking to do there, I think the big question is, you have a property owner who owns that parcel of land, and can we allow anything to happen there? Because it's not, there weren't just concerns about the wetland, there were concerns about taking that natural area away. But it is a privately owned parcel that is zoned for that, it's appropriately zoned for that use. So that's the situation that we're in there. But I do think that, you know, what we are talking about here is limited to that. And when you look at the segment of the alley that is looking to be vacated, the property owner did talk to the property owner just north of this alley as well to see if they wanted to go in, because you have to have signatures from all the adjacent property owners to vacate. They could have vacated more of this alley and had more of it developed. Property owner to the north did not want to sign on this for some reason, despite the fact that they have already put a parking lot well into the alley
gonna
anyway.
say, yeah.
So they have, I don't know if we would call that illegally built a parking lot into the alley as is. So why they didn't want to sign on to vacate that alley so that they could have that legally and have their parking lot there is beyond me, but that's neither here nor there for tonight. But so that's kind of the situation that we're in. It's we're just looking at vacating that portion of the alley, but it will be for the purpose of developing that site.
Okay. Any other questions for Aaron? If not, a motion for the resolution approving a preliminary and final plat for the property at 2335 6th Street North.
Okay, that's the next
Oops, that's the wrong one?
Yep.
Oh, let me get it.
Zero Burke right away.
Should be page 145.
Yeah, I got one. I got 151. Resolution approving the vacation of right-of-way adjacent to Zero Burke and 2120 5th Street North. Is there a motion for that?
So moved.
So moved by Councilmember Sonic,
I'll second.
second by Councilmember Thorson. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Still got one nay. City Manager Dudek.
Mayor, Council, the next item we have is a subdivision at 2335 6th Street, and Aaron will present that.
All right. Thank you, Scott, Mayor, members of council. This item is for a minor subdivision, the creation of 3 total lots out of a single parcel where an existing single-family home sits at 2335 6th Street North. As I mentioned, that single-family home is there after the subdivision. It's planning to remain on one of the newly created lots, and then there would be 2 additional lots available to be built on for single-family use. The proposed lots meet the requirements of the R1 single-family residential district in terms of lot area and lot width. There are utilities available within the existing right-of-way. And in addition, the owner has agreed to clean up an easement that exists right now along 6th Avenue. So a portion of the existing property that really should be part of the 6th Avenue right-of-way is just an easement on the existing lot. We're going to clean that up so that the city actually has that as right-of-way for 6th Street, as it should. So there will be a standard 60-foot right-of-way along 6th. along with the 3 new parcels created for the owner. The Planning Commission recommended conditional approval of the request. The conditions are that park dedication fees be paid for the 2 additional new lots, that permanent drainage and utility easements be recorded around the perimeter of those lots as required. There was a specific condition that Lot 1 be served with water and sewer from the utilities in the Castle Avenue right-of-way rather than cutting through one of the other lots. And that unused water and sewer laterals within 6th Street be abandoned as part of any new home construction. And with that, I would answer any questions you have.
Any questions for Aaron?
Yeah, how much are the park dedication fees for that? I don't remember seeing
We
that.
didn't have the exact
I
fee
believe
in
it's
the,
900 per.
yeah, you have it in your fee schedule.
Okay, and then those go directly into the capital or the park fund that's dedicated only to capital improvements, right?
I believe
Okay.
so, yeah.
Correct.
Any other questions? If not, let's try this one again. Motion for resolution approving a preliminary and final plat for the property at 2335 6th Street North. So moved by Councilmember Sonic,
I'll second.
second by Councilmember Thorson. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. City Manager Dudek.
Mayor, Council, thank you. Next item we have is requesting your authorization to purchase trash and recycling containers for the city, for all of our single-family residents. As you know, we're working on a contract renegotiation with our trash hauling contract. It's been in place for, I believe, 20 years now, and our contract is coming up in August, end of August. And as part of the review for the trash hauling contract and overall service and carts, we're looking at proposing to purchase carts for all of our residents in the city that would be owned by the city, which will help us in negotiating contracts in the future with haulers, because it takes that capital cost out of the haulers contract, gives us an opportunity to shorten the contract with haulers. In the past, as I just mentioned, it's been 20 years, so those capital costs for carts have been able to be amortized out over a long period of time. When we're doing a shorter contract, what we find is that haulers are trying to amortize those costs over that short period, so it's driving our cost up to our residents because of that. So we're proposing to purchase carts that would be owned by the city. It would be purchased out of our solid waste fund, and we also have an opportunity with Ramsey County for a $100,000 grant to offset the cost of those carts. So we would be looking at the same cart sizes that we have today, the 35, 65, and 95-gallon carts. Those would be, with your approval with this, we would place this order relatively quickly to facilitate delivery by the end of August in anticipation of the new contract that would start. Any other questions that you might have?
Any questions for City Manager? Are they gonna look beautiful and?
They're gonna be beautiful, as beautiful as a trash cart can be. We did think about that. We want to make sure that the carts, as they're outside, they're not something that's standing out, and but these carts would be a gray in color. The lids would be color coordinating based on the commodity that it's used for. So a yard waste cart would have a green cover on it, and the recycling containers would have a blue cover on to correlate with recycling, and the trash would be the same gray as the body of the cart. And again, they would be delivered to the residents based on the cart sizes that they have today, and then the existing carts would be picked up, and those would be all handled by outside vendors, so the city would not be doing any of that ourselves.
And this really does give us a greater leverage negotiating with the.
It really does. It helps us for the long term. The carts also from the manufacturer that we were negotiated with and purchased this, is the carts come with a 10-year unconditional warranty, so we're covered for full replacement for 10 years. And it just sets us up for long term.
Good. If no other questions for city manager, motion to purchase of trash, recycling, and yard waste containers. So moved by Councilmember Walzak.
Second it.
Second by Councilmember Peterson. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Mayor, Council, and then with your approval of this, we'll also start a campaign to get the information out to residents to know that this is coming and start publicizing that right away so that people know that that'll be happening.
I guess I'd like to, what I'd like to see is when we do deliver them, to have instructions in regards to, where to place them. A lot of people put them out in the street.
Yes.
And they really shouldn't be put out in the street, but I think most people just don't know.
That's
So,
correct. No, that's something definitely we've talked about and want to do because, especially in the wintertime, when carts are placed out in the street, it causes a problem for that. But yeah, we'll definitely have some material for that. And also the carts, there'll be some embossing on top of the cart that will even indicate which direction that the cart should be placed at the street. Because as you know, when you open the cover, so that's in the right direction instead of backwards or something like that. So we'll do a campaign and information out on that.
Good.
Next item I have for you is your consideration for the authorization of the cable cast equipment. So it would be the equipment in this room, our cable casting room, and also the conference room where we have our workshop meetings. It would be to update all the equipment in this room to bring it up from the analog equipment to high-definition digital. This is in conjunction with our suburban cable cast. We have funds available through the commission of you can see just over $90,000 that would come from the Cable Commission. There was some additional funding that we had previously used for the replacement of the cameras in the council chambers here that had been done previously. So that had drew down some of those funds to the current dollar amount that's in place. The additional funding necessary to complete the project, which is $140,000, would come out of our LGA reserves at this point. This has been reviewed by the Cable Commission, the equipment, they've reviewed it, and also another local cable commission has also reviewed it to make sure that we've got any efficiencies or different equipment needs. And both areas have agreed that this spec is what's best for us.
Any questions for city manager? Councilmember Sonic.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that other people had looked at this because it's just an awful lot of money, it seems like, for this equipment. And I'm wondering if, do we take any bids for this type of work, or this company, Alpha Video, they're kind of contracted with the state somewhere, or they
Right.
do other state properties?
Yeah, this has been bid through the state bidding process. They do, this is a contract through the University of Minnesota and
Right.
other state entities. So this has been bid through those processes and also used by multiple other municipal agencies. And not only did our cable commission look at it for uniformity of other cities around us, so that cable operators, that most of those cable operators will go from city to city and operate. So it was also an attempt to make sure that it was consistent with other communities around us, so it wasn't something unique. So both our cable commission and also CTV from Roseville also reviewed the spec.
And so there is some, in a sense, auditing of these prices and the costs
Yes,
for what we're
absolutely.
paying for this. So, because even though 95% of it is, or 96,000 is being paid by the Cable Commission,
It is,
I get concerned sometimes that you have somebody who's got a contract, it's like one of those fat government contracts, and they can just
Right.
pad it however they want and get,
yes, and that's why I had both agencies review it.
okay. Okay, well, I appreciate that you had some extra eyes on it, thanks.
Yeah, just quick
Councilman
comment. I agree, it's a lot of money when you look at it, and that's why I would strongly encourage moving forward that any meetings that we have either take place in this room or the Sandberg room now that's gonna have all this new technology, and we put it to use and record, archive, and televise these meetings that we've had, just like the previous workshop we had in the training room, We had a great presentation and a lot of useful information. That would be wonderful to be able to archive that and disseminate that out to the public and improve with our communication. So I know there's been some mixed feelings about broadcasting or recording and televising workshops and other commission meetings, but here's a good example of we've got all these wonderful new resources now that we're putting into place. And up until recently, we've only been utilizing a very small percentage of what goes on here with the council meetings. So it's great that we've made a step to include the planning commission meetings, and so hopefully moving forward, we can all seriously consider expanding on that with other meetings too.
And I would add with that, when you mentioned the training room, this system has the capabilities of being expanded. That would be another room that in the future we would look at to be able to add something in there, not only for the types of meeting that we had tonight, but even some of our training exercises that go on in there to be able to record and or receive information for training events.
I think people would just like to hear a good sound coming out of here into their viewing. Any other questions? If not, motion to upgrade to equipment in the council chambers in Sandberg meeting room.
So moved.
So moved by Councilmember Thorson, second by Councilmember Sonic. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. City Manager Duday.
Mayor, Council, thank you. Next item we have is our tax increment financing districts, and I'll have Michaela from Baker Tilly come up and present that.
Welcome, Michaela.
Thank you, Scott. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Michaela Hewitt with Baker Tilly. Before you tonight are 5 resolutions for consideration for adoption. And just a quick overview of what those resolutions are. They're related to 3 of the resolutions are consideration for calling for a public hearing for tax increment financing districts. So before you are 3 different tax increment districts that would be proposed for consideration at July 30th public hearing. So adopting those resolutions for each of those districts formally calls for the hearing, of which the actual hearing would be held on July 30th. The individual tax increment districts for consideration are tax increment financing redevelopment district number 4-8 for the North St. Paul Apartments project as proposed. Also tax increment financing housing district number 4-10 for the Trident housing development, and tax increment financing soils district number 4-11 for the Anchor Block North commercial development. So the first 3 resolutions would be for calling for the public hearing for those 3 districts. Also included are 2 additional resolutions adopting an interfund loan resolution for 2 of the tax increment financing districts, number 4-10 and 4-11. 4-10, the council previously adopted a resolution for the interfund loan, the amount of $100,000. The amendment, that resolution is proposed to be amended tonight to increase the dollar amount of that interfund loan resolution and to have it not be from the general fund but from the electric fund. And the purpose for adopting that resolution is it's a statutory requirement from the Office of the State Auditor that prior to the city incurring any costs from a future redevelopment district, it must pass a resolution that authorizes the advancement of funds from the dedicated fund for the district. So by doing this, it authorizes the city to incur some costs related to that district prior to it being established and having the formal district created. So by adopting this resolution, it provides the city with the authority to advance those funds. It doesn't obligate the city to use the funds, but provides the authority to advance the funds and use future tax increment revenues from the district to reimburse for those costs that are incurred. Similarly, the 5th resolution would be the adoption of an interfund loan resolution for tax increment financing district number 4-11. Again, that would provide the city with the authority to finance costs related to establishment of that district prior to it being approved, which would be currently set for that July 30th public meeting. So with that, I'd be happy to take any questions on any of the districts, any of the resolutions, or something similar.
Any questions for Michaela? not, thank you, Michaela, appreciate it. City Attorney, do you want me to do each one separate, or?
I think they can all be done at once unless Michaela has an objection to that.
I think that'd be fine.
Do the resolutions for the public hearings all together, and then the other two separate?
I really think they can all be done. Pardon me. I think they can all be done at the same time. If you want to make a motion to
Okay,
adopt the 5 resolutions being proposed in item G.
a motion be made for the resolution calling for all the public hearings. And what else?
Yeah, if you want to just read them, I think you can say a resolution calling for a public hearing on the proposed establishment of tax district numbers 4 through 8 within Development District Number 4, set for July 30th, would be one item. Number 2, as part of that motion, would be a resolution calling for a public hearing on the proposed establishment.
Got it. So motion for the resolution calling for a public hearing on the proposed establishment of tax increment financing district number 4-8 within development districts number 4. For the public hearing would be scheduled for July 30th. Resolution calling for a public hearing on the proposed establishment of tax increment financing district number 4-10 within development district number 4. Public hearing would be scheduled for July 30th. And resolution amending resolution number 2019-033 regarding the terms of the interfund loan in connection with proposed tax increment financing district number 4-10. Resolution calling for a public hearing on the proposed establishment of tax increment financing district number 4-11 within development district number 4. Public hearing would be scheduled for July 30th. In the resolution approving the terms of a interfund loan in connection with the proposed tax increment financing district number 4-11. That's all one motion. So moved by Councilmember Sonic.
I'll second.
Second by Councilmember Thorson. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, the motion carries. Thank you. That was a lot of resolutions.
It was a lot. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Michaela.
Michaela.
Thank you.
City manager, we have one other item. City manager.
Mayor, Council, thank you. Next item we have is the revision of our fee schedule, and that is, if you recall, the last council meeting we had where we had adopted a new ordinance for the massage therapy that we have in the community. We wanted to amend the fee schedule, which was currently at $2,000. And so we had done some research on that with not only within our community, but other communities around us, and how we've amended the ordinance. So we have a recommendation to adjust the fees as $150 for the license, for the fee for the premise, $150 investigation fee for the owner and the main practitioner, and then additional practitioner license fee of $40 and an investigation fee for the additional practitioner of $50.
Any questions for city manager? Not a motion to approve the ordinance adopting the 2019 revised municipal fee schedule and rescinding ordinance number 784 to revise massage enterprise license fees. Is there a motion?
So moved.
So moved by Councilmember Thorson. Second by Councilmember Sonic. Any other discussion? Councilmember Walzak.
I just have a question that, for the investigation fee, do you do something less for investigating on the additional practitioner, or do you do the same kind of background check, or?
It's less on the second practitioner, because we're basing it off of the licensing, the state licensing and everything, off of the main owner and operator.
Okay.
Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion carries. Could you just go an overview? I've been seeing so much on social media in regards to this business, that it's a massage parlor, and it's, you know, if you can just kind of clarify, because you've talked to the applicant, and maybe just give a little background on that.
Yeah, I think it's a stigma that has unfortunately been placed there by people of the past, and massage therapy is something that is very, very popular, and I can say our applicant in this case is well established, has all the licensing from the state and certifications and educations to follow. So it's a very, very well represented professional business. The applicant has business in 2 other cities adjoining us. So this is something that is not only well regulated, but is just like any other professional business.
Thank you for doing that. Do you have anything else under city business?
That's all, Your Honor.
If not, if you want to go into, oh, I'm sorry, we need to vote. I thought we did vote.
Oh, did we vote?
Yeah, we voted.
Oh, I thought we just made the motion and then we got
No,
questions.
no, we voted.
The only thing I would finish up with that, and thank you for this last minute carry-in to cover this, is again, it's another effort that we're trying to do with businesses of any sort that makes sense to be here in the community that are like this is a well professionally run business. But our previous ordinance didn't allow this, and so you amended that at our last meeting, and this was overlooked in our fee schedule. So that's why this was brought in last minute, because we do have an applicant that's ready to move forward with new business in the community.
Okay. Reports. City manager.
Development is happy to report that development at every meeting, and it's really exciting times for us in North St. Paul. Just to give you an idea of what's going on out there is really quantified with our building permits. And building permits, just over these last 3 months, in April, we had $2.8 million worth of value in building permits that were taken out. In May, there was $1.5 million in value. And in June, this month that just ended, $3.5 million in building permit value. So there's a lot of things going on in the community, and we're talking about a lot of projects as you're dealing with TIF agreements and things tonight in preparation for what's coming. So we've got a lot of development going on in the community, and it's exciting times. The other things, as we talked about earlier this evening with your approval of the trash and recycling carts, I just want to get that information out. We'll start publicizing that as we'll work to get these carts ordered for our residents, and also finalizing a contract proposal that we'll bring back to you at the July 16th meeting. So that's ongoing. The overall development projects with the M&I Homes, as you're going through that, your residents are driving by the area there. They're continuing to build quickly. They've got multiple other buildings in process, one up that you can see from quite a distance from across the site from 36 in McKnight area, but they've got other ones underway. And as we talked this evening, for the hopeful development of the Anchor North site. Street projects, I know everybody's feeling the pains with those going on everywhere you go in Minnesota. It's 'tis the season. We have a lot of it here in our community with the Xcel Energy gas project, and then our own street projects that are going on in multiple different locations. So again, just bear everyone's patience, and if you have any problems or issues, let us know, and we'll try to help you with those to get those remedied as fast as we can. We are going to be discussing with Xcel Energy on their restoration work, because we've got gas work that's been done a year plus ago that has yet to be restored. So we will be talking with Xcel Energy staff to try to get a handle on that. And there's even the possibility maybe we look at holding off on any future permits that are being issued until they can get caught up on the restoration work, because it's somewhat getting out of hand with the work that's out there.
Well, what's funny is when they actually presented at the meeting, it showed a beautiful landscape, streetscape and all that. And,
right.
And hopefully, it's going to be that way when they leave.
Right. So it's just want to make sure that residents understand we hear it, and we're going to try to work and see what we can do to move that restoration work up. But if you have any concerns, let us know. The 17th and Delaware project, we've been talking about that on what the status is there, of whether it's something that the city would be doing for our student-built housing or other developers. Happy to report that I did have the meeting with a developer on that site, and it looks like that project will be moving forward. And they're going to be working on plans to hopefully come forward with the Planning Commission here in July. So we'll see what's at for sure, but they were trying to target the July 18th meeting with the Planning Commission to bring something forward. So that's optimistic for that, and if so, they would, same thing, they would want to get started right away this year. That would fully develop that site. The reminder for the car show on July 12th. Every Friday night is the car show, but a special one on July 12th with Chip Foose coming in town with his corporate sponsors, 3M. So we're expecting a extra large evening that night. Every night is very busy, but we're expecting a large turnout on that night on July 12th. So we're hoping for good weather, but we do have a backup plan. If weather doesn't cooperate, we'll have the community center for that event if needed. So plan accordingly, plan on attending.
And they are looking for volunteers. I will be volunteering myself, and if any other council member wants to volunteer that night, that'd be great.
Sure. Have a happy note to report. We did receive our hand-delivered letter this afternoon from the Met Council on our comp plan has now been accepted in a complete form for a final review process. So that will begin on September 3rd, where the review will start. So going through the review process, I believe it's the last review is September 25th. So if everything is reviewed and accepted at that point, it would then come back for council final adoption, likely that first meeting or second meeting of October for sure.
Question on that. Did this updated comprehensive plan include 3 apartment complexes and 100 townhomes and all that development that's been going on? So do we need to update it again already before it even gets finalized, or is that not really the point of this?
That's a good point. Your point well taken. And it's a moving plan, and I don't think we could keep up with something that's that detailed and in depth. Tom, you had comment?
With the comprehensive plan, I don't think it doesn't have to allow for those specific developments that may or may not happen over a 10-year period of time. It's just that is our direction set up to allow for things like that to happen? And it is. And are we accounting for the type of housing needs that we will have as a city and things like that? So
yeah, I've just always had a curiosity over the requirement that the cities do. It's a 30-year comprehensive plan, but it's required to be done every 10 years. So I don't know why they're just going to call it a 10-year comp plan. And then some of the things in looking over the previous one, it just kind of they're asking for a lot of work, and these there's professional fees that this is not a cheap thing. There's a lot of staff time taken up to it, and it's kind of like this strange moving target that they're asking us to make predictions and assumptions on things that already are probably pretty dated from the time it began the work a couple of years ago to anticipate it getting to this point. So I don't know.
They are very expensive, and I wonder if that's not something that the state could consider as they continue to ask for these things in the future, especially when you compare it to some of our previous comp plans. I mean, this one is much more robust than what the past ones have been. And I think you do a 30-year plan just so that you're looking down the road 30 years, but you have to update it every 10 years because things change so much. It's a very, very time-consuming process, and it's very expensive. I think it was $140,000 for us to do this plan. Yeah. And it's, because when you do consider what you're putting in there, it's directional guidance for the city, you know, what we would like to see happen and how we feel the direction we want to go as a city and how we can meet some of the demands both of the city and of state and we have a mix of housing and things like that. But of course, you know, we're not really even bound by anything that we put in there, you know, so it's kind of tricky that way. So it would, you know, given what it is and that we're not bound by anything that we put in there, it's a guiding document that it does seem excessive, the cost that's required in order to do something like that every 10 years, so.
Couple other items. Student-built home on First Street, 2046 First Street. So we're planning an open house for that, July 11th, from 4 to 7 p.m. So you're all invited. The community is invited to come out and take a look at it. So we have invites going out with that, and also the college is putting out invites for it. But again, July 11th from 4 to 7 p.m. at 2046 First Street.
Are we gonna have a ribbon cutting, or is that the ribbon cutting, or?
This is just an open house tour. Yeah, we did the ribbon, the groundbreaking when we started the construction. But we haven't done an actual ribbon cutting per
when
se.
we-
Yeah.
That'd be kind of fun to do.
We're gonna do something for the 10 years.
We like ribbon cuttings.
Well, we did that for this one house on the 10-year when we did the groundbreaking for it. Yes,
Only
Yep.
one ribbon cutting.
that's
per-
right.
Per house, yes.
Then the other one, we're continuing, Jason Zemer, our finance director, we've been working on our budget upcoming, so we've got a meeting coming up on that on July 10th. I think you'll see that as a great process, and looking forward to those meetings upcoming. And then also just want to wish everyone a safe 4th of July upcoming here. Be safe with the holiday. And last but not least, attended the League of Minnesota Cities Conference last week up in Duluth. I know Councilmember Walzak and Mayor Furlong were there, and our Councilmember Peterson. I know Mayor, you can give some more detail on that. But it was a first conference that I've been to, and I think it was definitely worthwhile, and some of the information brought back we can hopefully put to use here in the future.
Good. Thank you. Reports of council, commissions, and committees. Councilmember Sonic.
Yeah, the Planning Commission is regularly scheduled for the first Thursday of the month, and that is 4th of July this year, so we moved it to July 11th. So we will have both July 11th and July 18th. We're planning to have Planning Commission meetings. So we'll miss the open house, it looks like, on the 11th, but 6:15 here in the council chambers for both of those.
Your meeting doesn't start till 6.
Councilmember
I'm sure
Walzak.
there will be cookies. I have nothing, Your Honor.
Councilmember Peterson.
Just a lot of park and rec news. Science and Saliva on July 9th. That's with the Explorers, Polar Explorers, which is a partnership with the school district and our park and rec. And that's at Housey Park at 10 to 12, and I think they're going to do a make your one of our own kind North St. Paul snowman slime. You don't have to sign up in advance, just show up, and it's very fun. Just a reminder, the Splash, save the date, is July 21st, Sunday, 1 to 5 p.m. up at Silver Lake. And the Housey Park Food Truck Night is July 24th, Wednesday, food trucks from 6 to 8. That will be including our Park and Rec meeting, and from 6 to 6:30, neighbors or any of the citizens can come and talk about our lovely parks. And there'll be live music by any day now, so that's from 6:30 to 8:30. And
It's at Housey.
Housey Park, yeah. And the music in the park, the last one was unfortunately canceled due to weather. So July 25th, Empty Pockets will be up at Casey Lake from 7 to 8:30, and it's always a good time. So that's all I have, Your Honor.
And I think they had to cancel because they couldn't be inside because the real brass band
It's
is like
huge.
70
Yeah.
people playing brass instruments. You can hear it clear across town, so, and it did rain that night, so it was a good call. Councilmember Sonic, or Thorson,
Yeah.
sorry.
Ramsey, Washington Cable Commission, Suburban Cable Commission is meeting July 11th. And Thursday, July 11th, EDA is meeting Tuesday, July 9th, and that same Tuesday, the North St. Paul Business Association meeting's regular meeting has been postponed or canceled due to the 4th of July holidays, so they won't be meeting again until August.
Aren't you having a happy hour or something?
Yeah, I guess they are gonna schedule a
Okay.
happy hour event,
I saw
earlier
it.
in the day. I guess
Okay.
I'm not sure on the
4 to
time.
6 at the
Yeah.
Legion, I think.
Okay.
So I'd like to just mention the League of Minnesota Cities Conference this last weekend. It was a great event. I think City Manager Dudek actually got out of town.
Yes,
You
actually
know,
got out
I
of
think it
town.
was
In the
vacation
town
for
so
him,
far.
but he was actually working up there. Very good conference. I think the guest speakers were real good. But we also had a special, Councilmember Peterson was elected to the League of Minnesota Cities Board for a 3-year term, and I'd like to congratulate her on that, because it's a nice, you'll have a good position in the league to maybe help our city too, so
I'm looking forward to it, very
if
honored.
you want to just maybe mention what the
Sure.
process was. and-
I had to get up really early last Wednesday for my interview, and it was a little intimidating. I can, talk on my seat or my feet, but there was about 15 interviewers, and they're, in the hot seat, and they give you some scenarios and whatever. And I was up against mayors, city council, city managers. So they picked 5 of us, so I was pretty thrilled. We don't really get looked at on this side of town. It's always Wayzata, Excelsior, Minnetonka. They said, we've never had anybody from North St. Paul before. So I think that'll be good. I get to travel around the state as an ambassador and go to city council meetings and check in. I got a whole slew of things I can do or, travel. And I'm really looking forward to it. My mentor is the mayor of Bemidji. She's already invited me up to her cabin to get to know me. So, it's going to be really, I've always liked the league. They've helped us out occasionally on things, and you call them, and they're very helpful. So I'm very excited. Thank you.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. General business, Councilmember Simon?
Nothing, thanks.
General business, Councilmember Walzak.
I have nothing, Your Honor.
General business.
Just a
Councilmember-
happy 4th, and kind of be conscientious when you're doing the fireworks, that, don't do them after a certain time. I mean, people are going to do it, but kind of be conscientious. So thank you.
Councilmember Thorson.
Yeah, just real quick, I was able to attend the Parks Commission meeting that was held last Wednesday at Casey Park, and a couple items that were discussed that I just wanted to bring up briefly, in that was the park improvements that are going on up at Covey Hills with the playground equipment. Apparently there's no plan to replace the fencing that's currently there, and it's kind of in disrepair, in my opinion, and I was hoping that staff could maybe look into that, and maybe if it takes council action to get that done, so be it. But it just seems kind of odd that we're investing in that park, but we're not finishing that one small piece that doesn't seem to be a major financial impact. And then a concern was brought up about a crosswalk on the 11th in Ariel, and how residents frequently are there. There's a metro bus stop there, so there's people there constantly crossing 11th from the apartment complex, or people coming down Ariel to go to the shopping center there with the Cub Foods and Home Depot and other things there. So I don't know how that works. That's not a county road, is it? 11th?
No, it's not.
But it's a border road with us and Maplewood, so I think it might make sense to look at getting a crosswalk there, and then, including some of that solar panel flashing crosswalk light was done here at Margaret. That seems to be
So this is for
effective.
crossing at 11th Avenue, actually?
Yes,
Okay.
crossing 11th Avenue, and there was just some safety concerns for the resident raised that she would appreciate that, so I'm bringing it up here.
Okay. And we can definitely look into the fencing issue at Colby Hills. I don't know whether that's something we can handle under maintenance, and if not, I can bring something back to you, but we'll look into that.
Okay. I'd just like to mention, again, everyone, a happy 4th of July. Jerry Fisher, one of the, our Dan Fisher's wife, purchased flags for the Veterans Park, and you'll see those coming up. She's going to be place those on, at the Veterans Park on July 4th, on Thursday. We also got a new kiosk down at the Veterans Park. If you get a chance, go take a look at that. It's a very nice addition to the park. With that, no other business, motion to adjourn.
So moved, Your Honor.
So moved by everybody. So moved by Councilmember Sonic, second by Councilmember Walzak. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Next regular council meeting will be Tuesday, July 16th at 6:30.
So are we having a meeting?